Well, it's good to see everybody. Well, it is 5 o'clock. So, oh, well, 5 o'clock here. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and in Arizona, it's 5 o'clock. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started here. And so, welcome everybody to the class tonight, and we're going to be talking about disconnects. And that was the request from Miss Barbara. Where'd she go? She disappeared. Oh, there she is up there. Okay. You know, it's funny the way the different boxes move around, depending on who makes a move or makes a sound. Boom, they swap around there, and now I'm looking for somebody else. So I'm sure we'll get a couple others in here as we go. But at least we have a topic tonight. Last time it was fun to talk, but we have a topic. And then we have a topic for next time. And I believe it was how to do a energy transfer. Whatever that's called, I can't remember right now. Yeah, that's really a concern. You know, I think Glenda nailed it. I got a disconnect in my brain. So maybe we can figure out what's causing that. I finally broke down, went to a chiropractor. And, you know, I've talked about this before where we can probably work with just about anything, and it takes time for it to actually happen. So I've worked on my back, and I put it off. I went on that. Something happened. I twisted wrong, whatever I did. And so my back was sore, and I still went, and we did the catering up there in Utah and moving around and everything. And I was kind of moving slow because of the back. So I get back here, and I finally found out that they call it the joint, and it is a chiropractic company that has over 800 chiropractor locations around the United States, and I didn't even know that they existed. It costs you, I'm trying to remember how much it was, maybe 49 bucks, or maybe no, was it 29 bucks for your first visit, and then you sign up for a monthly fee, which is 79 bucks, and you can go in 4 times a month and get yourself adjusted. It takes like 5 minutes. You walk in, they give you, and once you get all the paperwork done, you go in with this little thing like you would have for the store, and you just go in there and you beep it, and they got all the information. You go back there, and this particular location, they got 3 beds, 3 different doctors. I was out of there in 5 minutes. And it was amazing. So now I'm going to go back tomorrow to make sure, because I got this event that we're doing tomorrow night. And I'm just going, wow. And if you need an extra session, 10 bucks. And I'm going, I think I like this. So hopefully I'll be able to get this in. The reason I was telling you about this is sometimes we have something that needs to be just adjusted to get past it. I mean, I had a client today who had a ton of fibroids, and that is a big issue for ladies, and because the period usually stays longer, and this is the heaviest period that she's had, even when she was younger, and she's right around 50, and her doctor had said that, he says the best way to do it is just do a hysterectomy and be able to get that out of there. And I tested, and I said, your body does not want that. You do not want this hysterectomy. And I'm going, what is going on with this? Because it was pretty obvious. And her uterus is actually up and twisted because of the fibroids. And I can see it. She's over 50, so she's probably not going to have any more kids. And the hysterectomy would probably be a big deal for her. And so I said, well, what's going on here? What's really happening? You are just dead set against getting this done. And it turned out, I said, so what's really happening? And we were able to determine that it really wasn't about the fibroids so much as it was about, because of the severeness of the fibroids, apparently they have a procedure that you can go and remove those without too much, fairly invasive. But this was bad enough, they're going to have to cut her open and pull everything out. And so we were talking about it, and it boiled down to the fact that she was Her mother passed away last year. So the question is, who's going to take care of her while she recovers? Another one was feeling like she might die. She really did not want to die, and she was afraid of the loneliness and the fact that she's doesn't have a partner or a family at this point. She has a sister that can come. Anyway, we went in and we started going through that stuff, and by the end of the session, she was on board with the hysterectomy, and her body was now saying yes. And the other interesting thing that came on that was that it will become a clearing of the past, because there's a reason why your body has had fibroids. Now, I could work on that every single week or twice a week or whatever, and I believe that firmly that we could get rid of that stuff, but sometimes it's a matter you have to go in and get rid of the actual problem. And that's where I was really going with this. And so, it's really good that we have multiple sources of healing. And then we can go in and make sure, and like in her situation, this is closing a chapter in her life and opening up a new one, where she's going to be free from that pain from the fibroids and the problems. But also in her life, I said, you're going to meet new people, and you're going to have a good life, and otherwise there may be an issue. And I did have a client at one time who just was so embarrassed about having a doctor see her because she was overweight, and it just was embarrassing because she had a vaginal issue that it was really bad. And I did not tell her not to go. I said, you need to go. But she was so embarrassed, and it turned out to be uterine cancer. And because she didn't go and put it off, it cost her life. So you got to remember there's multiple ways of doing things. Anyway, that's not where we're going with this today, but I thought, me finally breaking down and going to a chiropractor was a good thing, because it gets rid of the stuff, puts you back into adjustment. We just need to make sure that the energies that caused it in the first place are now gone. And that's where we come in. That's the energetic part of it. So, all right. I see you down there, Jolene. Just wanted to say I acknowledge you here. And if Lizzie wasn't there, Lizzie's trying to run her practice at the same time. She's in Malaysia. So let's see, who are we missing? No, well, okay. So I think I've acknowledged everybody that's here. Let's go ahead and let's talk about this disconnect. Now, Barbara, what was the question that you actually had?
The issue I had is with disconnects on the body code is spirit to physical disconnect or physical to spirit disconnect. I get them all confused, and I have a hang up on figuring out which stop talking. What's all that about? I'd like to know other people's experience with clearing those.
Stop talking?
Well, does the spirit stop talking to the physical body?
Oh, not communicating. Right.
Not communicating. Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to first of all I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to look at Dr. Nelson's old version that I constantly use. Okay. Because that's the one I have. And that way you'll all understand what she's talking about, the spiritual, the physical, and all that kind of stuff. And I will go over how I do this. So I'm going to go ahead and screen 5. So here we got Dr. Nelson's charts, right? Everybody's seen these before. And it doesn't matter if you're using the app or whatever. When you go into a disconnect, usually it's under circuits and systems, and you'll see that you have the option for a disconnect. And you'll see here, this is actually kind of true, where you've got the plug where it's unplugged. Now, a disconnect can happen in a bunch of different ways, and hopefully we'll remember to go through them all. But I'll click on this because this is the options that he did on the old one. Is this the same on the app? Everybody know? Pretty much? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'll go through this based on what I've got here and the way that I normally work with it. So on this app, on the right side, you'll see there's a spirit out of body, there's spirit to physical disconnect, and there's spirit to spirit. And on the left side, we see morning sickness, and we see physical to physical disconnects. Now, I do use this to go in and figure out which one it is. And if it's a physical to physical, I will put disconnect and I'll put a P/P. That means that that's a physical to physical. If it's a spirit out of body, I'll write spirit out of body. If it's a spirit to physical, then I put an S/P, or I'll ask on the other side, is it a physical to spirit? Because it can go either way. Remember, we got a double connection here. And then down at the bottom one is that's a spirit to spirit. And that's the, and I just put an S/S. And then if it's morning sickness, I use all of this stuff a lot. And I'll explain the different ways that I do it. And you know that what I did was these charts are come about, the ones that I created, these charts came about because I realized there was more than just what I was seeing on the screen. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, so you hear my abstract way of looking at things. And if you guys have a comment or something, just make sure you make a note here because I don't see all of you at the moment. I'm going to slide you all over here. There we go. Oh, Melissa just accessed us there. Hi, Melissa. So let's start on the left side, and we'll start from the bottom, which is the most common one that I get, which is a physical to physical disconnect. Now, once again, each one of you, as you do this work, it's going to show up differently for you from this point on. And I'm sure that David gets different stuff because he's doing it. Jolene gets different stuff because it means something to you as the practitioner, and the subconscious of the person is picking up on what you believe it to be. Does that make sense? Okay, because that's just kind of the way it works. If you don't have any clue about disconnects, my guess is their body's probably not going to come up on this unless you're just going to go through the logistics of it and you say it's a physical to physical disconnect. So when this happens, we have that chart. It's called the disconnect chart. Let me bring it up here for you. Make sure we got it. And I'm going to drag this down here so y'all can see it. So this is the double version of things. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here just to see if we can, let's bring that over here. Get rid of that. So it's just the only thing that we see on the screen. And let's slide it over there. And down on up just a little bit here. Can y'all see this?
Yeah.
Does that make it so you can see it? Okay, good.
Yep.
So what I do, this is our disconnect chart. In fact, I'll go up a little bit further. You'll see it says disconnects. This is when I created this particular chart, 6/6/19. Now I have on mine, and you'll notice at the bottom, there's still open spots. On my page, on my chart, I'm always adding stuff. And there's not a whole lot off of that. But on the bottom, and you may want to write this down if you have it, but under 2E or E2 down here in this open spot, I put in a schism. And then on the open charts, I also put separation, something new, change, out of the box. And then over on this one here, I put cure to pain. And then I put imposter and syndrome. Now, do you need to know that? Not really, but they're just things that I added. And I also corrected how I spelled the vagus nerve because once again, I am not a literally on medical or on spelling apparently. So now what I do is I look at this, and remember we're working with the physical to physical. And I asked that question first of all, a physical to physical. Now in Dr. Nelson's definitions, usually you can have, and you gotta remember there's a physical and a spiritual to everything, right? So you have a physical bladder and you have a physical bladder. And there could be a disconnect between the bladder, and it could be, and that's why we have the spirit to physical. It could be physical to spiritual, or it could be spiritual to physical. Okay. And when there's a disconnect, the terminology that I usually work with is they're not talking, which is where Barbara brought that up. They're not communicating, or as in the example that we just saw, the plug did not plug in, right? So somebody had disconnected. There was no communication back and forth between those two. So the question is, and I just got rid of that right off the bat. It can be physical bladder to spiritual bladder, but I find that most of the time it's not. So I find that when I use this chart, and I always ask her, well, so what's the left side? Because I separate them. So in other words, I find out what is the first part of it that's not communicated. Excuse me. So let's use the bladder as an example here. We can do that. You have something else that would be maybe not bladder. Yes. So when it's physical to physical, it's pretty hard for the bladder to not be connected to the bladder, right? So I don't even worry about that. And I say, what is it that it's on here? And if I tested this right now, and I'll go across the columns. Let's go up here, back up a little bit higher. Oh, that's good enough. So is it in the first column, second column, third column, fourth column? So the fourth column, is it A, B? Look at that. We are in the chakras. And is it throat, heart, solar plexus, navel? No, it's in the sacral chakra. So I know that on the left side, it's a sacral chakra. And I'll say, out of curiosity, is it an imbalance or a malfunction? In this situation, it's a malfunction. Hey, this is me. Okay, so anyway, I'm using me as the example. So my sacral chakra is not communicating with my bladder. And it can be both physical to physical. Okay, even though the chakras, we kind of figured that it's kind of spiritual anyway. I just say, ignore that. We're just writing things down as they come because the subconscious is guiding us. So far, everybody on board?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is it my bladder? And the answer is yes. This is what's in column 2. It's in B, so it's a B2, and it's the third one down, and that's the bladder. So the sacral chakra is not communicating with my bladder. So is that the issue? And the answer is yes. And then for me, I like to find out how much of a disconnect is there. Is it 100%? No. Is it more than 50? Usually it's not going to show up very often unless it's at least 50, but it's possible. In fact, if I find that it's something less than 50, I'll go, is that really the actual disconnect? And I'll go back and I'll say, okay, so let's look at it again. Because usually I find that most disconnects that we have to work with are at least 50%. Doesn't have to be, but if I verify it the second time around, and it says it's still the sacral chakra and the bladder, then I know that that's where I'm at. And then how much is it? Is it more than 50, 60, more than 55, 54? 54% disconnected, which means it's not communicating all the time, but it's probably just like on TV where they're going, you know, I don't think, you know what, that, and you're just not quite getting the full message. Sometimes it's going through, sometimes it's not. A lot of times you're going to find it's a 100%. They're not talking. There's something in the way. And I usually, if it's a physical, I don't worry about it too much in that there might be another direction because I'll say, is this both directions? And it says yes. So far, are you up to speed with me?
Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so what I do then is I find out, and you could just connect it.
Yeah.
And the problem is there's a reason why they're disconnected.
Yeah.
And if there's a reason why they're disconnected, it may not stay connected. You may need to reset it, which is fine. And you ask, is it going to stick? I always ask that. And he goes, no. Okay, so then that's why I automatically assume that there's a reason why this disconnected. And then I go into, then I go right back and I go down a line and I'm going indent and say, what's causing this problem? And then I walk through whatever it is that I'm finding and release the energy. So make the adjustments until I get that completed. And I'll say, is there still a disconnect? And it will say no. And I'll say, are you connected 100%? Yes. Do I need to reset you? And if I need to reset it, then I go ahead and reset it. Make sure that it's at 100%. Now that's a physical to physical disconnect. Questions? Go ahead, Barbara.
So, okay, so you were looking for cause and finding that. Sometimes I can't find cause, but I can find something in the emotion code that is holding that disconnect in place. Do
Okay.
you do that?
I kind of look at it the same way. You just use a different terminology on it.
Okay.
Okay, because I figured that whatever it is, if there's something else in the emotion code that, or in the body code, or in a book on my shelf, or whatever it is, that is underlying, that's keeping it from functioning correctly.
I see. Okay,
Now,
thank you.
a lot of times what I'll find is that there's another disconnect. There can be multiple disconnects that are causing this issue to happen.
Okay.
Just remember that as you're digging down, as you're going down, that's what you're looking for, is what's keeping it from functioning correctly. Because if we clear that stuff out of there, there's no reason for it not to be connected. And I usually find that I don't have to do anything after I release that, because now it's functioning again at 100%.
Okay.
Okay, and then I go, what's the next thing? So in this situation, that was a physical to physical. It could be exactly the same on a spirit to physical basis. Okay, does that make sense?
You still use the disconnect chart for physical to spirit?
I do, because you're going to find that sometimes, just like that was kind of weird. It wasn't, it could be the bladder on both directions. In this case, it was not. So let's just say, I'm going to use me again, since my body seems to want to be good on the examples. Okay, so if I've got a spirit to physical disconnect, is it in column A, column B, or 2, 3, 4, A, B, C. So now I've got something that's in C, root, base, earth star, all chakra systems, other. I'm in other. Okay, so usually when I hit other, remember this chart that, and I will ask, is this on another chart? And this one says yes. So let's go over and look at another chart. In fact, I think I can just slide over here. Nope, wrong one. I was wrong. Okay, so let me move this whole thing over just a little bit. There we go. There it is. Okay, so you'll notice that on this chart right here, this is my other chart. Now, the other one has only seven chakras that it shows you. Now, what I found is that I need to work with 12 or 13 because there's some stuff that doesn't show up. So obviously, I'm working with this resource worksheet here, which is right across. If you move one page over from the, if you got it like mine in the book, if you move it one page, in fact, there it is, you'll see that it's on that page on the next one, right above where the body stuff is, where you want to find the body. Is that better? So these are the chakras, and I kind of circle them out there for you. And I ask, is it on this chart? And on this situation, the answer is yes. Is it on the upper part or the lower part? Because you'll see the ones that are starred. Those are the ones that match up with the one on Dr. Nelson's chart.
Okay.
Okay, and if it's one of the other ones, is it the knees, the base, the earth star? Oh, look at that, it's my earth star chakra. And I put down there, and depending where you look up the definition on this, it may say 6 inches below the feet, or it could say, there's different ones as far as whichever book you look at for chakras. In this situation, it's the earth star chakra. Now, I guess that's off a little bit. Oh, wow, I didn't notice that I'd screwed that up. Anyway, it's this one here, so it shows below the feet. And there's a disconnect. Okay, so we know that there's a disconnect that we're dealing with here. So let's go back to the other chart real quick. Now you know where this chakra is. And this is your grounding chakra. Okay, this is the thing that connects you to the earth. So let's go back to this one up here. Let's see, we're over here. All right, so we're up here and we're going to say, we know is it a spirit to physical? This is a spirit to physical. So it's my earth star chakra is not connected to 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. So in C3, I got immune, lymphatic, nervous system. My nervous system. All right. Anything else on this chart? Nope. So I know that we've got the earth star chakra and we have my nervous system chakra. It's in the nervous system. We don't know what it is at this point. We just know that it's in the nervous system. Is it something that's on this chart? It is not. So at that point, I'm going to go back to Dr. Nelson's stuff. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, Whoops, wrong one. Hang on, sorry. No, it works. Okay, so systems, and I'm going to go to my nervous system down here. Is it the central? Is it the peripheral? It's in my peripheral. Is it on the right side? It's in the autonomic nervous system. Look at this. Okay, so within the autonomic nervous system, we know there are three different categories, right? The parasympathetic, the sympathetic, and the enteric or nervous system, okay, which is, more with your digestion. But mine's the sympathetic nervous system, which is the part of you that freaks out, and that's what takes care of it when you are when you want to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So you got the four different directions there. And so let's find out what mine is. Is it the fight? It's the flight. Hey, I'm running away from something and I'm not grounded. That's pretty much what it says in this situation. So far, am I making sense?
Yes.
Okay, everybody else, any questions so far before we go further? And it's okay. I mean, Sandra, if you have a question, ask. Melissa, you guys are new, but if it doesn't make sense to me, then please, because there's other people who are going to have the same impression. And we are recording this. People are going to watch this later. So if you have a question, unmute yourself and ask. Anybody? All right. Go ahead.
I do have a question. So let's say the autonomic nervous system was actually spirit. You would be the spirit of your autonomic nervous system?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I always look at it with that possibility. Now, is there more? I think there's more. It could be mental. Is there another level of it? No, but there could be more to it. Is there another version of, rather than fight, flight, and that stuff? No. But there could be a different kind of disconnect. Absolutely. Oh, could it be like, it could also be like, and we're going to get to that, but it could also be, what is it that we're working with here? Let's go back. We don't need this part. So let's go back to our disconnects. Morning sickness.
Oh.
It could also be morning sickness. So that could be the type of disconnect. Is that what we're dealing with? So the type of disconnect. So it could be spirit to physical, physical to spirit. Same thing with spirit to spirit. All three of those ones on the bottom can be handled the way that I just showed you. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes.
Physical disconnects. Now let's look at the spirit out of body before we get into the deep one with the morning sickness. Okay, so spirit out of body is like, if you're in an accident, your spirit can actually be jarred out of your body. And it could just be an inch. It could be something you ran into, if you're, carrying something, or it could be the shock or blow of news. You just found out your wife's cheating on you, or you could just find out, somebody wants a divorce. It could be an emotional blow. It could be somebody's death. Could literally knock the wind out of you, you might say, and it just stuns you. And the only way you're going to know is by asking. Okay, but if it shows up, your subconscious already knows because it just brought you to this chart. So if you're up there and you say you got a spirit out of body, I usually ask, how much? What's the percentage? Are you out more than 10%? No. More than 5%? Yes. 5, 6, 7. So out of 7. Tom, are you out of spirit, out of body? No, because that was my example and was participating. So 7 inches or 7% out of sync. Now that can cause actually a lot of pain. And people will feel that as physical pain. Or they just like, I just can't seem to connect. Well, there's your disconnect. So if it's something you just can't get over. So fortunately, it is possible to simply say, can we just bring you back into alignment? And at that point, I just bring the person back into 100% alignment. I remember reading a book, and I'm sure you guys have all heard of this, not the book necessarily, but the system or what's going on is, as they call it, remote viewing. Or you can have where you literally are able to take your spirit and go to wherever you need to see, and you're able to see it. and you become disconnected. Now, what they found was, and I've tested this to be true, you're not completely disconnected from your body, but your spirit is going out of your body to a spot and looking. And they said that there's this silver cord that is still connected, and that's to protect your body, because you don't want another entity to enter your body while you're gone. Okay, makes sense? But you can do that. And I remember his name is Robert Moore, I think anyway, I'm not positive. He's really big. If you look at near-death experiences and remote viewing, his name's going to pop up. And he remembers that he was in an accident, and for a long time, he just kept feeling he'd be driving and his butt would be dragging on the ground. He could just kind of feel like there's just something not right. And that's kind of what happened, is his spirit had actually been knocked out of his body and there was not a connection. And that's possible. Test it for me, guys. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So when you ask the spirit to come back into alignment, sometimes you may have to do something to do that. So I ask, can we just bring it back into alignment 100%? And usually the answer is yes, but there may be something that's in the way or needs to be released so that you can have that connection again. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Barbara.
So this is a whole body. It's not an organ or any part of a body. It's the whole body.
It can be. Could it just be an organ? Absolutely.
Okay, fine.
It could be. It could be anything. You just need to remember that what we're dealing with is, we're babies in this industry.
Yes.
We have no clue. And what the subconscious is going to do is it's learning as we go. And when you do this work, as long as you keep an open mind, and I didn't when I first started, I thought, Dr. Nelson said, you have to do it 3 times down the back. And I thought, okay, well, I have to do that. And what was the other thing he said? Oh, for a psychic trauma, there can only be 2 or 3 emotions.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm going, I learned that wasn't true. I've had as many as 25.
Hmm.
And the thing is that you have to go with what you're willing to deal with. And when you're willing to look past that, which is why we have charts, guys. That's the only reason I started creating charts, is because I kept finding things that weren't quite right. So my sister, who does this work, she does the whole session and writes them all down. And she says, can I just release them all? And she does. And for me, that just seems crazy. I like to do them individually, but for her, it works. And you do remember that the subconscious will do what it says it believes it can do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Barbara.
So if you get a spirit out of body, do you ask when did this happen or what age you were? Do you want the person to try to remember or not?
You could, but I do it just because I think it's fascinating to get the answers.
Yes.
It fills in my desire to understand more. Now, the client may not care.
Okay.
But you're going to find that, oh man, this arm has just been out of whack and for a long time. And it may just be the arm that's out. Somehow, maybe there was a trauma or something that happened. And I didn't think about that before. And that just popped into my head. And I'm going, okay, so we'll share that as anything is possible. Remember, anything in energy healing can cause anything. And if you've got something out of whack, I wonder periodically, and it's testing positive, that, when you constantly are doing sessions and you're testing and some of my finger starts to hurt, and I'm going, did I just pull it out of whack? And it says, yes. And I go to the next finger, and I go to the next one. And I'm pretty certain all of them are hurting. I'm going, I got to figure out a better way to do this. And so I might even have to do a session on my hand. Okay. And I have done that before. I've done a session on my finger just to make sure, because I'm ornery and I haven't learned how to do this without hurting myself. So, and that's why you learn to do very lightly if you do this particular motion. And I find that a lot of times I have to do this one because Yeah, it doesn't look weird, number one. And if I'm in company, I can just kind of be testing here and nobody complains. But if I go like this, they're going, what the heck are you doing? So, you got to figure out your way of testing. And some people, literally, we've done that where the thumb goes up for yes, the thumb goes down for no. Up, down, and sometimes people can see colors. Sometimes they can feel their ears move. Sometimes it's their feet. It doesn't matter. All we're doing is we're picking up on the nuances of what the body's doing. And, remember before I said I had to train my body, and it's still not 100%, that when this finger moves, it's a yes. And when this finger moves, it's a no. For me, that was something I taught my body to do that. And so sometimes when I'm going, did you just give me the right step? I'm back to here. Oh, is that what right? Okay. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It's all a matter of testing. So when you're doing things, you need to remember that your body, your subconscious, has so much capability, quantum physics,
Okay.
that it can tap into just about anything and be able to give you answers if you want those answers. Now, Sandra asked me a question earlier because we were talking earlier today. And she said that, what happens if I, working on family and I already know the answer and I have a tendency to predetermine that answer. Now, how do I clear myself? And sometimes what I do if I'm doing a proxy session, especially in proxy sessions, if I'm doing a proxy session, a lot of times I will listen to something else. I'll put something on in the background just to kind of distract my mind that's listening so that my body does the testing. And I trust my body to be able to give me the answers. What do you guys do? Let's open it up. How do you clear your mind to know that you're getting the right answers?
Well, I ask, am I getting truthful answers or did I just interfere?
Anybody else?
I just do a test in the beginning of the session, Tom, and asking their name or age or whatever, and then if it's giving me the right answers, then I'm good.
Okay, David, you're going to say something?
Yeah, sometimes if I'm not sure, I'll just say, is this correct? And then it'll say no or whatever. Then I know that I got to back up a little bit and start over. But the biggest thing I think for me is to just try to clear myself so that I just don't have a feeling one way or the other. Just try to be the conduit or whatever.
Objective.
Yeah, so you just kind of just back out of it and just do the work, but don't try to figure out in advance what the outcome might be, because a lot of times you think it's one thing, it could be something totally different. You just never know.
And that doesn't, and for some reason I need to say this, and that works the same with pendulums. In other words, as soon as you think something on the pendulum and you project it, it's going to do what you're thinking. Okay, and for some reason, and I asked, you guys asked too. Maybe this will be helpful. I didn't pay attention to the chats here. Let's see. Ask the question. Ask the client if they want to know more about the age. Oh, okay, that's about disconnects. Okay, so but as far as what we're talking about right now, I'm testing that. Is there a way to overcome that automatically? And I'm going, no, you have to consciously be clearing your mind to allow the correct conduit to come in. I used to have fun with people before I knew how to do this. I watched a thing that talked about dowsing, and it was talking about finding people who are lost. So somebody gets kidnapped or will get lost. I used to work in search and rescue. And I used to have fun about holding the pendulum, because that's how I was hoping that I would get answers. And I used to have fun just to say, go right, and it would spin right. Go left, and it would stop. It just fascinated me that was a capability. And I would say, just go neutral, and I would go back and forth. And I had no clue about muscle testing at that time. So even at that point, I thought I could. I said, no, you're moving your hand. You must be telling yourself to move your hand. So I would make it so that literally it was hanging over the edge of something like a table or something, just to see if it would run down the string and make it do what it was supposed to do. I was fascinated with that. And I can do that. And I think you can do that too. So that is something to think about. But as you trust yourself more, you're going to find it's easier and easier to do this without projecting something on it. And that's the biggest thing, especially when you're doing proxy sessions, to try and trust yourself and just allow it. And once you, for me, it was seeing the results in people that I was still doing work for that weren't there. And they said, "Oh, I'm so grateful." And you know, whether it's a pain that suddenly disappeared or something else, you know, it just depends on when you finally trust the answers that you're getting, makes all the difference in the world. Okay, does that help you, Sandra? You're not alone. You're just new. Because I think we all go through that. Okay, so let's see what else. Okay, so are we clear on the spirit out of body now?
Yes, thank you.
How about the spirit to physical or physical to spirit?
That helped me, thank you.
Okay, and spirit to spirit, same thing. Spirit to spirit.
Ask
tells me-
about spirit out of body. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So, I have a client who meditates often and astral projects. Would that be similar to what you were describing with the silver
The spirit out
string?
of body. It can be. That is a voluntary one. You know, when
Right.
you start
But
reading
because
those
she does that and we've been doing like energy healing just recently, and that's why this topic was really important that I come today, was that she now has like pain in her ovaries. And so I was like, I wonder if it's tied, because she
exactly
likes to meditate and visit elsewhere. So I was just wondering if maybe there's some disconnect in that I
I
can
don't think
ask
there's,
about.
yeah, I don't think there's any problem with doing that kind of work and leaving, but she's not getting 100% back in. So it's really interesting when you look at that astral projection, that type of thing, and they talk about leaving the body. It's really hard to do it to start off with, because the body's not used to being disconnected. So I've heard, you know, and some of them, they say you got to kind of do a backward somersault to get out of the body. You kind of got to do this because it's like it won't quite let go. Finally, you're disconnected, and you see things differently when you are disconnected from your body. Think about the difference of being able. Let's look at hearing, or even vision's fine too. We can use vision either way, but there's certain frequencies that you see with your physical body or hear. And when you disconnect, all of a sudden, it's like your subconscious can see 360 degrees. It can see all this stuff out there. And depending on what you wish to focus in on, I think personally that it's like a lens on a microscope. So you turn the knob, or on a camera where you're focusing in, you can see certain things as you change your view. So being outside your body, the only concern I have with doing that is protecting your body while you're out. Okay, because there's still bad guys out there, entities, devils, demons, third dimension or outside dimension, eighth dimensionals, a whole bunch of them out there that you're going to discover, and you're exposing your body. And you've probably seen the movie where, okay, protect my body while I'm gone. And they're out there doing their thing. John Carter, Mars, one of my favorites of what's his name? Anyway, there's a movie that you can go out there and watch. But I used to read all the books. Edgar Rice Burroughs. I used to write those books, Tarzan books, everything else. But his Barsoom series. Every time John Carter went to Mars, his body was laying in a cave or something, or a mausoleum, to protect it, because somebody could come and kill it. And if that happened, he had no place to return to. Okay, so that's kind of the issue that you're dealing with here. And believe me, it is actually real. So does that answer your questions, Melissa, on the out of body?
Yes,
So,
it does. Thank you.
so you can test. It'd be interesting to see what's going on, because something's not fully connected back in again. And that was voluntary. So just remember, it's just like a Ziploc. You use it too many times. it doesn't work right anymore. So you want to make sure that that's taken care of. Okay, so now we're going to address the elephant in the room, which is morning sickness.
Morning sickness.
Okay, so
Yeah.
disconnects when it comes to morning sickness can be associated with just about anything. It could be starting a new job. It could be starting a new part of your life. And as your body goes through, you got to remember what morning sickness is. You got something inside of you that's being created. And most of the time, when somebody has morning sickness, there's a reason for it, you know, that the body has not accepted this foreign idea or this concept or this entity. And so what you're dealing with is, it could be somebody who's pregnant, but a lot of times guys get this. They're starting a new business, starting a new job, starting a new relationship, and it just makes them sick. And it's because their mind or their body is rejecting something. And so I always ask, is this, I ask those questions. This is about, life. Is it something that you're starting? Is it something you're having problems with? And just like these, we're going to go into this real quick here. I'll show you the charts that come up. First thing that happens is this. Is this the unborn child or is the mother? Where's it coming from? So I use these to actually figure out. I go, well, if it's the mother, I said, is it you that's the issue, or is it your new business? What is it that's not quite fitting in yet? And what's happening is the body is rejecting that idea or concept. So let me throw a different version of this into. Say you suddenly won the lottery. Now you have all this money and your body says, well, I didn't earn it honestly. It was a gift, so it's not real money. And you react to that particular deal because you're going, oh wow, or somebody, or you have an inheritance. However you get this depends on how prepared you are to handle this situation that's completely different than you ever had before. And now you're looking at, and what happens to most lottery winners? Was it 3 years? And they're usually flat broke. And they're usually worse off than they were before because they couldn't handle it. Sometimes, I've been reading this book. It's called, it's a great book. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I really have a disconnect, I think, in my brain. Anyway, it's about success, about how to deal with the mind change that you do when you get money. And if you are somebody that inherited money from a father who you hated, then a lot of times your mindset is, I don't want this. I'm going to get rid of it as quick as I possibly can. And you usually do. Or it just depends on your mindset completely. So you have to change your whole idea about what is going on. So here it's a very good example. I told you earlier about the woman who has the fibroids, as her uterus is way up there, and they say you need a hysterectomy to get this cleared out. And she's going, oh, heck no, I'm not doing that. And I'm going, well, there's got to be something different going on. And this was her concept, her belief system about what was going to happen to her if nobody was going to come and help her. This was going to take too long. I have nobody. My mother's the one that does this, and she died last year. Who's going to come take care of me? I'm all alone. And I might die, And we went through and we cleared out quite a lot of stuff of what was going on, but it needed to happen. So now that she can have the healing, the saving operation that she needs to have in order to have her move. And that's when it came. I was like, this is a whole new life. She's going to start a whole new life. I'm still thinking, I think it's called Sudden Wealth, is the name of the book. So anyway, it talks about all the different types of changes that you could be doing. And I use this chart right here. Look at this, unborn child disconnected from the mother. And then it goes, is this spiritual or is this physical? All we're doing is we're just trying to go in there and say, okay, so what's really going on? And obviously, if they really are sick, and then this is, I find that this doesn't always work for me because the mother, for some reason, doesn't think that it's going to work. It can be usually when they're throwing up and everything. I have a daughter who 2 really, really hard pregnancies. I thought this was going to be, it's going to be perfect. It didn't help her a whole lot. She still was really sick. So you just got to remember, it's a two-way street. And like I always say, it's not your job to solve the problem. So don't feel bad if it doesn't work. You're doing your best to try and do this. The healing part has to come from the client also. Does that answer that question? Oh, that went faster than I thought it did. But what else, Barbara?
Okay, on this morning sickness, if you click on mother, there, it pulls up well, then you do the mother, lower right. I think
Okay,
it
mother's
pulls
body.
up placenta, yes, up in the upper.
Yeah, on the side over here. On both of them, they're the same.
They're the
Fetus,
same.
placenta, and amniotic fluid, and umbilical cord.
I remember that one time you talked about somebody starting a new business, and each of those represented something. And I think like the placenta was representing the environment or something. Do you remember what those mean? I mean,
I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily, but we can. But what makes sense? Let's put it that way, because that's usually the way I go. The fetus obviously is the physical thing that you're dealing with. The placenta is the surrounding environment. I like the way you said it. But the amniotic fluid could also be the same thing, because it's the nourishment of that. And then the umbilical cord is the connection that you have with the whole process. That's the what's popping to mind is the cord. It's the cording. How tight? Let me give you an example, and that might be helpful. You know, most of you know my goal is to buy a ranch. My goal is to, and I have delved into that. I know what's going to be there. I know the it was Lizzie that asked about the peace process. We're going to do that one on the next one, Lizzie, because we're not going to be able to do it today. So anyway, on this ranch, I have literally taken a look at this place. I talked to the realtor twice, and I've got what's going to be on there. We're going to do glamping, we're going to do camping, we're going to have a restaurant, we're going to have a store, we're going to have a whole area built up this way, that it's a certain way, and I've got all kinds of stuff that I'm doing for this. I'm ready to go with this thing as soon as I get my funds. And then today, I popped it up there and it says it's off the market.
Ooh.
And I'm like going, whoa, somebody just gut punched me. Now, there was another piece of property right close to it. And that's what happened was the email came up and it says, this is a pending deal. No, somebody can't be buying my property. Well, they're not. They're buying this other one. But then I looked up that one and it said off the market. And I'm going, whoa. So in my mind, I'm like, somebody just damaged me. I know it's going to work. I know where it's going to, and I had just so fixated on everything that it has to be this property. Well, I know it doesn't have to be this property. It's going to be a property. And I am prepared for it. But this was kind of a disconnect for me. And it's almost like I have a stillborn here. And I'm going, no, I'm not going to let that happen. Off the market probably just means that with this economy right now, they're not going to get the money they want. And maybe it's just safer for them to pull it off the market, or maybe she's ready, the owner, it's a woman, maybe she says, maybe I need to go a different direction. You know, I'm still going to present, and I'll be willing to pay them the money that they wanted. But at that point, you can see where the disconnect can come in, and you're just like, my daughter had a stillborn baby. She went through the whole pregnancy. You know, unfortunately, the cord wrapped around the neck, and it just was heartbreaking. But she still had to deliver the baby because it was still there, and it was stillborn. A very, very sensitive thing. But this kind of work that we do is important because we can go and we can pull those out and help that person heal quicker. I've got one example here that I'm going to share of a client that physically moved so that she could have a relationship with this guy. Unfortunately, they were like on opposite sides of the country. In fact, she was even further. She's in Alaska and he is on Virginia area. So it finally got to the point where she's going, okay, I'm going to go ahead and move. And she did. She, it was all really exciting. This was going to be completely changed for her life. New work, new relationship, new location. And she gets there and the guy treats her like crap. And he breaks up with her after she just went there within a week, and it was just like, well, she was devastated. I mean, she just got her heart broke. Talk about a disconnect. And the thing is that we worked on it. We've had a couple sessions since. And I said, she can feel the healing. Now, we pulled a lot of bad stuff out of there. And then you know what? She was beating herself up because of this. Instead of being mad at the guy, she says, what's wrong with me? And she's a very beautiful young lady. And I'm going, there's nothing wrong with you. And but we had to heal that heart. We had to get that cleaned up. And she's doing much better. Now she's still having situations back and forth, but there's hope. And we all know, most of us have been through a divorce, a breakup of some kind, and we know how devastating that is because we went through it. But that's kind of what we're dealing with here on any kind of a disconnect. All of a sudden, something's not working. It's like my brain, guys. Like, I keep trying to think of things. So anyway, does that help you with that particular
Thank you
disconnect?
very much. Thank you.
So what questions do we have? Any questions on the disconnect?
Tom, I had a observation I had today.
Hi, Lynette. Go ahead.
Hey, a friend of mine, she had a broken heart when her husband died. And so when it broke, there were only two pieces, but not only that, she also had a disconnect from the physical heart to the spiritual heart, to the spirit heart at the same time. So he had to repair the break and then had to connect the spirit to the body and then the body to the spirit after that. That's how the protocol went today. Is that how you normally see something like that?
I let the subconscious tell me how it's supposed to happen because I was in the impression, like when this lady goes over there, I thought she was just going to be super pissed off about this guy abandoning her. And she was, but she didn't blame him. She blamed herself. And I don't know about your client, but that's a possibility. They could blame themselves for that person not being around anymore. But yeah, you're doing it correct. All you do is just asking the subconscious, where do we go to do this? We are not mind readers. We have to use the charts and the tools that we have here to try and do the best thing that we can. And usually it's going to be revealed as we do it.
So even though she's not here then in my office, can I go ahead and check that out and try to help with that even though she's not here?
Absolutely, as long as you have permission.
Okay.
Or jurisdiction. Like if it's a child or something like that, or a grandchild, I don't ask for permission anymore. If it's my kid, I go ahead and do it. But it depends on how adamant they are. If they're okay with me doing things like that, I just do it. If not, and there's one guy that I just worked with, an old friend. He gave me permission, but he doesn't know what the heck it is that we do. So I do the work and I don't send him the summary. I just say, hey, I'm working on it. If you feel funky, it's because it's me. That's all I give him. And I don't know. I've done a couple sessions on him. He's in major pain. He can hardly walk around. He's worse off than a lot of us there with back pain and everything else. And I thought, well, if we can do anything, and I haven't heard from him, but I'm going to keep doing sessions because he didn't tell me to stop. So that's just the way that I look at things. So if you've got a client that I check in on them periodically. And I think it's interesting too, that sometimes I get the impression that, nope, don't do anything, leave them alone. They gotta sit, they gotta percolate. And it's usually a reason. A lot of times people will say, can you work on me when you get a chance? Well, I will, but sometimes I get the impression that I shouldn't do that session right then, and I should wait. And I do wait, and I feel guilty. I feel, oh my God, I'm supposed to have done a session. And I just I've learned that it's okay. If I feel like I need to wait, there's a reason why I'm waiting. Because they're kind of giving me that impression that somehow that connection. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yes, Tom, this is Glenda.
Hi, Miss
I just
Glenda.
want to say, hi, I just want to say, if you ever have an instant thought that comes into your head like that, always listen to that instant thought, because that's your intuition. And it's when I did not listen to my intuition that I made the biggest mistakes of my entire life, because I used human reasoning to justify things. So that's all I just wanted to say is, if something comes to you in an instant, go with it.
I had a client today, and she's in another country, and she had we didn't do an actual session. She actually just says, can you test my subconscious to see where we are? And she had a big business decision, and it was actually pretty exciting. And it tested positive that these people that she was going to work with are going to be good people. And because she's really concerned, she's been burned before on her business dealings. And it worked out, pretty much. She would ask the questions and say, okay, so what about this situation here? What kind of readings are you getting? So all I'm doing at that point is, because her subconscious knows, and her subconscious knows these people. And so with permission, I would test and I'd say, okay, so yeah, these two guys that you're going to work with are going to be really good. And she says, well, what about the wife? They want me to work with wife. And I don't work with women very well. And she's a woman. And I tested, I said, no, she's going to become, you guys are going to be friggin' awesome because of the energy. Now, she was willing to allow that answering stuff to happen. So that's, it's just, you got to go with, and she goes, oh, that just, that eases my mind. And for me in that situation, I know she trusts me completely and I trust her subconscious completely. And we were able to get answers. You can't predict the future. That's not what we're here to do. Very few times does that happen where something happens and you just there and go, okay, so within the next 3 months, you're going to have this situation happen. And I just want you to recognize when it does. But it doesn't happen to me very often. And usually in this situation, all I got was super, super positive vibes. By the time we got down ready to start working on something, we've already been there for 45 minutes. And she goes, no, we'll do that next session. I'm going, perfect. She bought another package. So it just follow your intuition, like Glenda said. If you get an answer, there's usually a reason for it. What do you think, guys?
Thank you, Tom.
Should have stopped
That was
the share
great.
a long time, huh? There we go. Corey, welcome. I don't know if it's Corey or not, but I see the name Corey. So let's see.
I do have a question, because
Sure.
I'm just this is so fascinating. So I've worked with two different autistic children from two different people. And one was, the child was aggressive and the other one was nonverbal. And now that I think about it, their brain wasn't connected to their heart. And I just thought that was just a symbol to me that's, autistic kids have that. One, the solar plexus was overly, so I just kind of like calmed that down a little bit. And then the other one was that it was under, right? Because it's like nonverbal, so they're scared to talk. And then now I'm thinking, like, I wonder if we connect all of that somehow, I'm just curious. I'm gonna do some testing on that.
It can be really crazy what this can do.
Right.
And you got to
Because
remember,
it just seemed like the brain wasn't connected to our heart. And I feel like our hearts is really where our soul centers are, right? Like really our feelings, our things, our emotions are, kind of like all triggered to the heart. So I'm kind of want to investigate that further. So thank you. I'm like, my mind is blown right now.
this is how we get new stuff, guys. Because you're interested and you're investigating and you're asking questions and you're writing down. I submit to you that even the, we had a discussion on this at church, believe it or not on this stuff, but on prophecy, not prophecy, revelation. And the interesting thing is that they were talking about how we still receive modern day revelation. And usually those answers, those big breakthroughs, is when you're struggling to get an answer to a problem. And because otherwise we just don't think about it. It's too easy. Everything kind of goes along and we just accept it. But when something happens that is a little bit different and you go out there and it could completely change the lives of everybody, but nobody asked the right question before and they didn't search the answers out. Does that make sense the way I said that? So I'm just saying that in some situations, the answers there needs to be questions. Let's put it that way. Somebody finally questions the system or the current beliefs or the traditions or whatever they are and say, well, why is that? And I've used this example before. You guys have all heard it, I believe. It's where there's Corey. Hi, Corey. So, so Thanksgiving or Easter, and they're in there, and the family's there, and they had the mom and the daughter that she's teaching the daughter how to do this, and they cut the ends off the ham, and they stick it in the bowl, and or in the pan, and they put it in there, and she goes, well, why are you cutting the ends off the ham? She says, I don't know. My mom always cut the ends off the ham. Well, let's go and ask. And she's here, and there's Grandma, and she says, yeah. She goes, yeah, we had to cut the ends off the ham because that's the way I was taught. Well, Great Grandma's there too, and they asked Great Grandma. She says, oh, my pan was too short. I couldn't get the ham in the dang thing. So she cut both ends off the ham, and everybody considered it to be a tradition until somebody asked a question. So, a lot of times we do that all the time. Time will distort the reality because of necessity at that particular time. So hopefully that was helpful. All right, guys. Any other questions before we go? Corey, do you have any fantastic things you want to offer for us?
Not at this time, no, but thank you. Working the phone. So just hello, everyone.
There we go. Okay, then I will let you all go. Thanks for the great evening. I always enjoy it, especially when we have something fantastic. And we will talk about the peace process next time for Lizzie, for Dr. Lizzie, I should say that, Dr. Lizzie. And the peace process is not mine, but it's something that is really, really good to work with. And if we understand them, maybe we'll talk about the peace process and maybe combine it with something else that's very similar. So if you got other ideas, let me know. Okay. All right, y'all. Have a great week.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Love you. Bye.